Where to fish in challenging conditions. Hi, my name's Roger Osborne. We've all been down to the beach and we have a look and it just looks like crap. And that was the case today actually. I went to 3 different beaches and at the moment the beaches are as flat as a billiard table. They are so flat. So in this video I'm going to teach you what do you do when the conditions look like crap, where can you go for a fish and hope to catch a feed. Make sure that you like and subscribe. Let's get into it. The place I've chosen today is at the end of a beach because on the main part of this beach, like all the other beaches I've seen today, it's just flat, and even at high tide you're going to have just a whole bunch of shallow white water and no decent green water. So I've come to the end of a beach and I'm actually in a unique spot because there's a tidal island just out here and there's a beach there and a beach there. So I can basically within 50 metres I can be fishing on one side or the other. I've noticed that there's a little bit of weed. You can see there's some weed on the sand, but when I look out in the water there's not heaps of weed, so I still think it's good. And there's a little bit of reef out there, so you can often get a variety of species in spots like this, and certainly much better than hanging out in the middle of the beach. Definitely wouldn't fish down there. So I'm going to whack a line out. I've got some lovely fresh beach worms, of course, and I'm fishing an incoming tide as the sun is setting. High tide tonight is at 7:50 p.m. and it's currently 5 o'clock basically. So it's a good time to be fishing that run-in tide just on dark. It's fantastic. So I fully expect to catch some fish, whereas I just wouldn't even bother chucking my line in some of those other places on the beach. Got some lovely worms today. They're just, you know, really beautiful, beautiful beach worms. These ones, when you pull them out of the sand, they're actually about 1 metre or so long. But then when they've been sitting in your bait bucket, they kind of condense down in size a bit, but they're quite, like, really good thickness actually. So I'm going to sit him on top of my bait bucket, put him on. Just going to have a look at his head, see if he wants to bite me like they often do. His fangs, oh, do you see those fangs having a go at my finger? Look at that. They look like a spider's fangs almost. It's amazing, but they can't hurt you. You know, I'm putting my finger on his fangs there and he's kind of, I can feel them scratching me a little bit. See, they go back in and then they come back out again. Come on, bring your fangs out. There you go. Very interesting. I had a guy put up a comment on a video. He's from the America, the USA, and he's saying to me, do you know if there's beach worms in the USA? If you are watching this and you're from the USA, I'd love to find out if there's beach worms over there. It would be a revelation. It would be awesome to find out. It would be great to find out if you can get them in a number of countries around the world, you know, in the who are on the Pacific Ocean, because that's where we are on the Pacific Ocean. So I've used the head end of that worm for the first bait. Now I'm just putting another bit on. So you get quite a few baits out of one worm when they're a good sized worm. There's actually a lot of worms. All the worms today were big, hardly any small ones. So I've used two generous baits. I've still got that much worm left, that first worm. I'll put him back on the top in here so I know which one I want to use him up before I grab another live one, because these will live for 2 or 3 days in the condition that they're in, which is great because it means I can potentially have a fish tomorrow or the next day. So I'm using a 2-hook rig with a star sinker, and this rod has 20-pound monofilament line on it. So I'm going to chuck my line out pretty close right to the end of the beach here where this rocky outcrop is. The water out there looks pretty clear and doesn't look like there's too much weed. There isn't any particular deep trough or cut or gutter here, so I'm basically planning to cast my bait out to just beyond where the waves break, just beyond the break zone. I can see a little bit of weed out there, so while there is some weed in the water, I don't think it's going to be all that much of a hindrance. Whew, feel that nice, cool water. Sheesh. Alrighty. So I'm going to put in a fairly strong cast. Okay, well that's not too bad. I think with my next cast I might put a little bit more effort into it. But that's kind of in the break zone where that landed. And you can see where I am here. I've got a beach here, and then there's another little beach right here. And from what I can see, there's no weed on that side, so that's a really good option for me. It's a pretty calm little spot. You don't get any big waves in there, but I think it could be good for brim and whiting in there, so I'll just see how this spot goes here. But it's a great time of the day to be fishing. The sun's just disappearing behind the hill, so I'm just going to enjoy being in a very beautiful place. Better go and get my other rod and whack it out as well. Have you ever eaten those lollies, you know, the sour worms? They have kind of like a crusty, sugary coating on them. These worms look a little bit like that, so I'm pretty sure they are lollies for fish. I have toyed with the idea of trying to eat a beach worm, but I don't know. Well, they would have a bit of protein, I should think. Comment below if you've ever tried eating a beach worm, if you've ever been that bold. We'll see how long it takes to get a bite. I think I'm getting a bite. Yeah, something's going on over here. Yep, look at that. Look at that. Something's going on. Yeah, something was I'm hoping it's not a stingray. It's kind of bit interestingly. And I'm not far from the reef, so it's heading over to the left a little bit. It's definitely not a salmon, I think. I'm not sure what it is. It's a little bit heavy and lumpy. I think it's, oh yeah, look at that. Okay. Oh. I think that's a male banjo ray. Yep, this is a male banjo ray. You can see what they call the claspers at the back of the ray. These things here, they designate it that it's a male. Going to gently remove the hook, so thankfully just in the edge of his mouth, so that was easy to take out. So this is obviously not our desired result, but when you fish close to the rocks, you get a few of these creatures and things like this. But you also get a lot of brim and trevally feeding in amongst the rocks and the weeds, so that's really what we're wanting to catch. These fish are amazing for your garden. I often take this home and put it in the garden and convert it into vegetables. It's a really good fertilizer. I've moved down to this little sand spit because in this area here you've got waves that are meeting in the middle, but the waves on the right hand side are dominating and pushing across this little sandbar and creating a nice little kind of eddy just in here. And I think that as the tide comes in, this is the perfect spot for bream and whiting to be feeding as these waves are washing food across this little sand spit into this side. So I'm actually going to I'm going to chuck one line out here, and because I'm right on the point here, I'm going to toss another line out on this little, in front of this little beach over here. So I'm going to have one line one way and one line the other way, because the weed seems to be a bit of a problem over there. So I've just moved about 50 metres along, but I think this is a good spot. These sorts of places at high tide are very good. You absolutely get heaps of bream and whiting in places like this. So, and it looks like there's not much weed out there. So I'm just going to flick it out there. It's pretty shallow. It'd be interesting to see as the tide comes in how it goes. I'm intending to fish until dark because I've often had great success on big whiting around dark, and the tide's doing the right thing, so I'm going to leave that one there and go and get the rest of my gear. See, in between the waves, it's kind of calm. Every now and then a bigger wave comes in and breaks there and you've got white water through there, but it's certainly deep enough for fish to be sniffing around in there looking for some food. This is just a little beautiful little beach here. It's very protected. It's actually a really good family beach. Very safe for the kids. I'm just going to flick this out the back beyond the break, which is not that far. We'll see if there's anything having a look around out there. Yeah, that's about just behind where the waves are breaking. The line's a little bit slack. Okay, so I have a fish. I've cast out on this calm side. So that's encouraging to hook a fish, it's great. What is it? That's the question. So I'm fishing in a really calm kind of tiny little beach on the southerly side. Okay, what have we got here? Wow, what have we got here? Well, that's pretty cool. Look at that. How good's that? So I've cast out, you know, there's virtually no features. It's a really calm little beach here, but I've got a double hook up on trevally and bream. Now the trevally's a nice little eating size trevally, but the bream is slightly undersized. So I'm going to let the bream go, but I'm going to keep the trevally. When I just caught those two fish at the same time, my line got a little bit tangled, so it's a bummer when that happens because I had to devote a little bit of time to actually re-rigging. It was so tangled I had to pull the whole thing apart. And when you know there's fish out there biting, you really just want to have your bait in the water as much as possible. So thankfully, I'm back rigged up, ready to go. I'm going to chuck it back out again. See if I can get another trevally or bream or something would be good. Something's going on here. Definitely was having a bite then. I can feel a little bit of weight on my line. I had an obvious bite, but it's not really fighting. Feels more like weed than a fish. I definitely had a sharp bite, but we'll see what this is. If it's actually something edible. Oh yeah, no, it's fighting a little bit now. Oh, look at that. That's a beautiful brim, actually. Look at that. Look at that guy. It's obviously a good little spot here. I haven't had my line out very long. Been busy untangling my other line, but that's the second brim that I've caught in a really short space of time. I've got a nice trevally which I'm keeping to eat. Got this brim as well, so I'm going to get this guy. And actually, my top hook on this rig, I had a hit on it before I wound it in. It's been bitten off, which is very rare with beach worms. I just think that a tailor has taken that beach worm. They don't often take beach worms, but that's about the only thing that I can think of with really sharp teeth that would have taken that top bait. So I'm going to keep this guy. That was bending over a bit. There's something will be going on. Okay, so I've just whacked this line out again. I was just taking that brim off and this is getting bites. Actually, yeah, it had gone a bit slack. Whatever it's taken, it swam in with it. Okay, I can feel a little bit of fighting. Wow, this is awesome. What a great little spot. Now, have I got one fish or two? That's the question. It's going to walk in a little bit closer to the shore here. Can't actually see the fish. Ah, it's a dud. It had a little bit of fight in it, but it's a stingray. Look at that. That surprised me, actually. Yeah, that stingray tricked me. See that hook just right in his lip. So all I have to do is reverse that, and that comes out pretty easily. And while these are a nuisance, I'm going to let him go. It's great because in this little calm side here, there's no seaweed. Whereas on the other side, we had some really big waves yesterday. The swell was right up, so it's obviously stirred up a lot of the seaweed. But on this side, no weed. Okay, what have I got? I had a fish, but it got off. It got off back. I've just been setting up my other line. And I obviously had some bites, but didn't hook up. So I've got to rebait. I had a bite. Felt like a brim bite. Just waiting for it to whack again. Unusual to get a couple of hits like that and then not go on with it. I definitely had a couple of whacks then. Here we go. Oh, yep, got him this time. I had a couple of hard whacks then, and then it just went quiet for a second. So I just had to wait, and then thankfully it came back and it's got a little bit of fight in it, so I know it's an eating fish. quite see where it is. Where am I? Oh, it's over there. Oh, 2 brim, would you believe? Look at that. A double hook up on brim. Beautiful. Try and get them next to each other. Look at those 2 fish. Stay still. Look at that. A couple of beautiful brim. Whew. Double whammy. I've never fished this location before, but I just came here because of the conditions. But it's fantastic, really good. So that's 4 brim so far. I better check my other rod. Where are those pesky salmon? They never usually leave me alone. Haven't caught a single one tonight, just brim and trevally. Lots of brim, trevally and a couple of stingrays so far. There you go, I don't always catch salmon. Well, that was the first mosquito for the season, having a nice drink off my leg, but I squashed him. I've been getting so many bites, every time I put a rod down and leave it, it gets hammered. Well, I've been either taking a fish off or doing something. So I'm just holding on to this one. Yeah. Got to tighten up the drag a little bit. I've got something, yeah. Awesome. Not huge, but it's kicking. I'll probably get fish on my other rod now. Oh, here we go. It's another brim. This is just a small brim. He's a little bit undersized. You can see that worm bait, but he's too small, so I'm going to let him go. Now my line has gone completely slack on this rod. It's completely slack, and what that tells me is a fish has grabbed it and swum in towards the shore. So I'm just going to wind up the slack and see what happens. Yeah, I've got a fish. I'm just trying to feel it. I think I've got a fish. Doesn't feel like it now. But definitely had some bites and yeah, no fish. But whatever it was had picked up my line and swam quite a long way towards the shore. I got a fish actually. So have to let the other rod do its own thing. Let's see what this is. Whether it's an edible fish or an inedible fish. Feels a little bit quiet. A bit stingray-ish. But we'll see. Yeah, here it comes. Skipping across the surface of the water. This is just a little junior stingray. Yeah, the line's gone sort of slack. Definitely gone slack again, so what's going on here? Yeah, oh, look at that. I've got something. Hopefully it's not another one of those other little things. Certainly bites every time I chuck my line in the water. I can't feel the typical kick of a brim. It's another creature of the night. Looks like jelly on a plate. Look at the difference it made. It was a good lesson today. I only moved about 20 or 30 meters from where I was before. Completely different result. Heaps of bites, every single cast, some beautiful eating fish. Whereas if I had just stuck to one spot and not really prospected and, hang on, what's going on here? My line's just gone, something grabbed it and swum in with it. Man, that was full on. That's weird. That was really strange. Seriously, my line went completely slack then. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Just making a few adjustments made a massive difference. I could have gone home with nothing, and it was not really hard at all to try a couple of things and just have a look at the area that I'm fishing. So I can highly recommend that to you when you go down beach fishing. That was so strange. My line went completely slack. Then it went slack again. And this was the culprit, a little brim. He likes those worms. It's amazing, there's so many brim in this spot. I think I'll be coming back to this location and fishing again. It's been really good, actually. A little bit of a surprise packet. I've had a really fun session and caught some beautiful eating fish. So I'm so stoked. It's still pretty early, so I'm gonna head home and have a few munchies. I hope that you've learned a few things in this video. I'm sure that you have if you're a beginner. At least learn to make some adjustments, and you can see the difference it made in tonight's video. I'll see you again really soon.